The pads are on in Cincinnati. Let's break down what went down at the Bengals' first padded practice of 2024.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Lisco. He's your host, James Rapine. We come to you every day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, covering your team every day on YouTube, everywhere you get your podcasts. If you're new to the show, you can, of course, subscribe and join the many thousands of Bengals fans who make us a regular part of their lives. Shout out everydayers and first listeners. And James, as we break down what went down in the first padded practice of Cincinnati Bengals training camp, what's top of mind for me is I'm very excited because I get to attend the Bengals' second padded practice of training camp coming up on Thursday. And I'm excited to be there with you in person. But before that, well, we get to talk about what happened as the Bengals don pads for the first time this season.
Yeah, and a bunch did. By the way, shout out to all of the everydayers, all of our listeners as I bring the mic closer that have said hey or plan to say hey throughout training camp. One person, believe it or not, mentioned Jake Lisco today. And I said, oh, yeah, he's going to be here next week. And just thinking like, oh, yeah, well, Wednesday's an off day in my head. And it's like, what? No, actually, he's going to be here Thursday because you break it up into like sections. And this is the second cluster of Bengals practices that's wrapping up training camp wise. So, yeah, it's going to be exciting. Today was exciting for a bunch of reasons. We'll get into the locker room coming up, but just seeing the guys in pads, like when I went out there, I was like, oh, all right, here we go. Like this, it feels like football. And it was super hot, like super hot. Like all the guys talked about how hot it was. And so one takeaway is if you're going to have your first full padded practice, you want it in the heat, you want it to be hard. And they got through it. And I think there were a lot of guys that stood out. I guess we should start, as always, with number 9, with Joe Burrow. I thought he looked good today. I thought he was on point. Again, I'm not sure. In fact, I'm willing to say it now. We're 6 practices in. He's participated in 5 of the 6 practices. So what, 83% of the practices, if you want to break it down by percentage, Jake, I know you're a numbers guy. 0 interceptions. 0 for Joe Burrow. If I would have told you that coming into camp, I think everyone would have taken it. Like just that alone. Obviously, there's a lot around that. But the fact that we're talking about a turnover-less Joe Burrow throughout team periods, working with new guys, not working with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins in and out, even though he was in for a lot of today. I certainly think that is worth noting. And the thing I noticed during team drills, just from an offensive standpoint, is the fact that Burrow really did spread the ball out today. Had a touchdown pass in 7-on-7s to Charlie Jones. Found Mike Gesicki for a couple of different plays, connected with Kendrick Pryor, found really, I'm trying to think of a guy he didn't complete a pass to. Obviously, he completed a pass to T. Higgins, I believe, in 7s, but T was out there in 7s for sure. But the point is Joe Burrow spreading the ball around to his guys, whether it's Shedrick Jackson caught a pass, multiple tight ends. So that was good to see.
Yeah, getting Joe Burrow going, always good news. Always good to see that he's doing his thing out there. I know impressing fans. The 0 interceptions number is interesting. I want to make a smart Alec remark and say, well, that means he needs to be more aggressive. Let's push the envelope a little bit here in training camp and put the ball at risk a little bit to find those limits. Come on, let's push it a little bit. But
well, he has pushed it. Like, well, he has thrown into some tight windows, and they've just been accurate. Like there just haven't been many interceptable balls. Now, you could also argue, all right, well, Taylor Brit hasn't been out there. By the way, returned today, did some stuff and was on the field and went one-on-one against T. Higgins in a rep that I have not put out yet, but was certainly a really tough rep for both guys. But yeah, I think it speaks to his accuracy as he's still working through the final 1% or so as he comes back from this wrist injury, because he is pretty locked in, knows where the offense wants to go, is supposed to go, and he's running it accordingly.
Yeah, notable that Taylor Brit did return to practice there. You snuck that note in. That's a good note. Nice to see him back out there competing with the pads on. Good to see him for the rest of camp as well. And one of the bonuses of having Taylor Brit back now that the competition can really amp up with those pads on is we'll perhaps get a little bit more of an idea of how those rotations are working between Dax Hill and DJ Turner for that competition to start opposite Taylor Brit. The more and more Taylor Brit gets involved. Also, ramping up his involvement a little bit faster than expected. And we talked about this just yesterday, is Eric All, who made a catch with some contact down near the goal line in a high red zone drill from Logan Woodside. And I was shocked to see him in a position where there was contact as an option. He ends up going to the ground pretty softly as far as football hits go, but surprised as I reacted to your tweet. You tweeted this clip. Surprised to see him in that position in the first place. That's got to be a good sign for Eric All's progress that he's out there working in 7-on-7 work in the first place.
Yeah, it was one of the highlights of today to see All out there, to see him take contact, to see him in 7-on-7s make a catch, get targeted, and go up, be physical, make the play. And it was like, all right, going up against Jordan Battle and in traffic there. And you're the one that brings it down. You're the one who absorbs the contact. You fall. That had to feel good for Eric. And so it's fun to think about the possibilities for him. And Zach Taylor sat up here where I'm sitting, one chair over yesterday, or we'll just say Monday, just because I don't know exactly when everyone's listening to this, but on Monday, and said, oh yeah, we're going to take it slow with him still. And I just assumed that was that. And we would see Eric All slowly get work in individual drills, build up, and then maybe ramp up the team stuff. Maybe after the first preseason game, maybe that Chicago week. And instead he's doing it now, which is a great sign. And hopefully it continues. It was with Jake Browning, by the way, got that ball from. It's not like he was with Logan Woodside or, Rocky. Yeah, he was with the second team.
My mistake then. I said Logan Woodside mistakenly. I must have missed the
I'm pretty sure.
number. Good.
Am I wrong?
I don't know. I could be wrong.
I'll pull it. I might be wrong here. I've seen a lot of clips, and I've posted a decent amount.
Well, you've watched a lot of practice as well.
I'll follow up. Go ahead.
It will be interesting nonetheless to see that tight end battle.
It was Browning.
Okay.
Oh, just beautiful. Against Jordan Battle trying to rip it away. So, yeah, that's tweeted out and posted on Instagram and Facebook if you're wondering.
And, of course, you can find that at James Rapine on Twitter. What are the other ats? Are they the same on Instagram?
Cincy Bengals talk. Yeah. If you look, you'll find it. It might have been TikTok too. We're on everything right now.
We don't promote those alternatives very often for you, but
good
to get those out there for training camp, especially when there's a lot of video content coming out to the people. Let's circle back to. I want to get your take on what the play of the day was, and let's go to that topic.
I have some little trenches for you too, Jake. Yeah.
We're on the same page. That's what I was going to say next. I was going to say, let's get to the play of the day and let's talk about some trench observations here. And we'll get to those topics coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which means if you're hanging out at the banks, and the Reds are in town this week, by the way, let's go to the Reds game. Well, if you have the Gametime app downloaded, you can take advantage of their zone deals, of their last minute deals, of all of the awesome things that come with having the Gametime app. You get views from your seat, and it makes buying Major League Baseball tickets that easy. And it's not just MLB tickets. No. Maybe you're thinking going on the road to watch the Bengals this year, coming to Cincinnati to watch the Bengals. Gametime is going to have the tickets for you. You have panoramic views from your seat. You know exactly what you're getting, all in pricing. And every event that you're thinking about going to, any event that you're thinking about going to, whether it's a concert this summer, whether it's Major League Baseball, whether it is the Big Three, which is coming here, by the way, Ice Cube's Basketball League, Gametime is going to have it for you. So download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, and redeem code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Excited to get into some trench talk here, and we will get there. It's a good reminder, though, to update some folks on a couple of injury things, as the Bengals did have everyone, quote-unquote, healthy in pads. That did not include Trey Hendrickson. That did not include Sam Hubbard, as those guys work back from what's still been characterized as minor bumps and bruises. I don't know if you go so far to call it an injury at this point for those guys. Trey Hendrickson doing a little bit of conditioning work today. Myles Murphy also left practice, which was a little bit scary at the time. Lou Anarumo went on to describe it as cramps for Myles Murphy and a very hot day, as you noted, James. But before we get to the rest of your trench talk and notes that you're ready and prepared with as the pads are on, and that's the time to start talking about the trenches, of course, wanted to get your take on the standout play of the day and see if it's one that I saw or if it's one that didn't make the social media rounds.
Yeah, I think it's one that you saw. It's not one that I posted, but 7-on-7, Joe Burrow drops back, has the ball in his hands for 2 seconds, makes the read, throws a perfect ball in the red zone to Charlie Jones in between Geno Stone and Mike Hilton. And Charlie Jones might have been the player of the day. I mean, he had a bunch of catches. The touchdown was the most notable. And it is wild to think about this wide receiver room, because after he caught it, I'm thinking, and I'm like, man, he might be wide receiver 6. Like, there's a real possibility that he is, as weird as that sounds. Like, Trent Irwin continues to make plays. We've talked about Andre Yosavash, who had a couple drops today, also had a couple nice catches at the end of the day to redeem himself and bounce back, which is good to see. We know about the big two in T and Jamar. So T, Jamar, Andre, Jermaine Burton, Trent Irwin, Charlie Jones. I'm not saying Charlie is 6th, but he might be. And so I think that catch was probably the play of the day from a skill player standpoint for sure. Jermaine
Burton also had a nice touchdown catch on Tuesday. Had to double check what
that
day
was
it is.
That was from Logan Woodside, not Rocky Lombardi, who, yes, I know his last name. I know I said it like I didn't, but yeah, it wasn't Logan Woodside, or it was Logan Woodside, not Rocky.
Well, Rocky and Lombardi are both names that stand on their own individually in different spheres, and in the entertainment and boxing sphere and in the football sphere. So fair to go with either of those individually for good old Rock. But a good day for some of the young skill players, as you described, between Charlie Jones, Jermaine Burton. I don't know why my mind wanted to go to Andre Yosavash, and Eric All making a play in his first team work in 7-on-7s. That's encouraging to see. But that being said, let's transition to the trenches as you're prepared and ready to talk trenches, which I'm ready for too. Can't wait to come and watch the trenches while everyone else is watching the ball on Thursday.
For sure. You know, I watch Joe Burrow, and that's where I'm at. And that's what's kind of fun. By the way, Joe had a really nice scramble today. I'll probably post it on social on Wednesday. So if you're listening on Wednesday, that'll be out. Another nice scramble. Looks good, looks fast. And the blonde hair, again, continues to grow on me. That said, number 71, we got to talk about Amarius Mims. Because you know how yesterday when we had our show, we were like, yeah, he might be better in pads. He might be better in pads, Jake Lisco. Really good today. Really good today. Now let's start. Trey Hendrickson, not out there. Sam Hubbard, not out there. But Myles Murphy, who limped off the field, just cramps, thank goodness. But cramping because you're working really, really hard to get around 71. And that's really, really hard to do. He looked good today, Jake. I mean, he looked good. The offensive line was holding up well. And that, my friend, is what you want to see. I think this offensive line feels really good about where they're at, including the depth, by the way. I think there are some guys that they're confident in behind the starting 5. Obviously, Trent Brown is getting closer and closer to coming back. But Mims, in pads, man, it just helps him become even more physical and even more dominant.
And it will be exciting to watch that aspect of his game, especially in the run game when it comes to just generally trying to move people. in pass protection, obviously you're moving backwards as an offensive lineman, right? And there's still a lot of power and physicality involved there, but getting to see him moving forward as well as we get to watch some run game work over the next week or two, that's going to be exciting too. And obviously getting into that first preseason game. Was there anyone in particular who stood out or has stood out, I guess, over the course of training camp so far, as far as the backups? You're talking about confidence in the depth. Is there anybody there that's standing out individually?
I think it's tough. I think it's more like talking with people in the building because I can observe, and like Mims is so dominant that you don't need to be this football savant or whatever you want to say to know that. Just because you can see the traits, and when the traits translate and he has the wins that he had, you take it. And heck, you went back and watched even the non-pad stuff from Amarius of some of the clips that are out there. So you could see what he's capable of. And so you'll get a sense of that. But as far as the backups, it's more talking. All right, what do you think about Matt Lee? Like, that's a guy that I've had a couple conversations about just to see. I haven't even talked to Matt yet because I'm sure he's swimming, right? And or treading water and just trying to keep his head above water. There's just a lot that goes into it. But I think Matt Lee is someone that is going to push for this roster. I think Jackson Kirkland is a name to keep an eye on as someone that can make this roster. And, there are a lot of the same other guys that are pushing for roster spots that are going to have to win them if they're going to be here another year, whether it's a Jackson Carman or a Deontay Smith, who's still healthy, which is good because he's dealt with some camp injuries in the past. So hopefully Deontay Smith can continue to have a good training camp and push for a roster spot.
And of course, we'll be keeping an eye on those rotations. In addition to defensive line rotations, Zach Carter continues to appear to get a lot of work with some of the earlier units. And generally, that doesn't seem to be going terribly well for him from what I've seen. But obviously, I've only seen a snippet, and pads did just arrive on Tuesday. So a long way to go there. But getting more involvement from the young guys there, Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson, obviously is something that we'll be watching in the trenches, in addition to Sheldon Rankins, who before pads were on was at times appeared to be unstoppable from what made it to social media. And obviously, again, that's a limited sample size. I'm not seeing everything yet, but was doing his thing, wreaking some havoc in the backfield. And that is an encouraging sign. But also nice to hear that the offensive line is holding up, that the offense is doing having a better time, let's say, than they did last year, especially in the absence of Joe Burrow. And hopefully that leads to a faster start for that unit when games come around. But we're a long ways away from that, and a lot will happen between now and then.
Yep, no doubt. One more note, and I know we talked a ton about Jamar yesterday. Not doing that, but Jamar missed practice again. But he did, and this is sort of unique. And I tweeted a clip of this. I should have uploaded it. We could have played it on the pod. It really wouldn't have played well on the pod because it's just him signing autographs. But the video, start signing autographs during one-on-ones, just cornerbacks and wide receivers, and he just walks over and starts signing autographs. And when Jamar Chase signs, kids go crazy, adults go crazy, just in excitement. And they push forward, and it became like a thing where thank goodness the drill ended shortly after that. But interesting timing by Jamar. I do know he sent a lot of kids home happy because they got to meet their favorite player and get a Jamar signed t-shirt or jersey or ball. So that was really, really cool.
Cool moment for them indeed. And cool moment for, I think, the entire team and the entire fan base when the Bengals posted photos and video of their new locker room. Let's discuss some of the coolest features of that new renovated locker room coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. I love sports. I love them so much. I never want them to stop. And right now, there isn't much going on outside of, the Olympics, outside of Major League Baseball, outside of NFL futures bets. The point is there's never a downtime for FanDuel. And that's why all summer long, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone all summer long with FanDuel. Maybe you want to get in on the Olympics because you think LeBron James and Steph Curry and Team USA is going to handle business and win gold. Maybe you don't. Maybe you're going to go against America. No. Maybe you think it's going to be one of these other teams that are really, really talented. Well, you can wager on that and so much more with FanDuel. So whether it's Cincinnati Reds, whether it's Bengals futures, whether it's the Summer Olympics, head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Again, that is FanDuel.com. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Big moment for the Cincinnati Bengals franchise as they unveil their renovated and significantly updated locker room. James, you were there for the media tour. Everyone saw the photos, maybe not everyone. A lot of people saw the photos and the videos on social media. You can check those out, of course, but I wanted to get your firsthand account before I talk about some of the things I thought were some of the cool features in the redesign.
Yeah, it was awesome. And just talking to the players, they felt the same way. What I'm going to do, Jake doesn't know this, but in a few seconds, I'll post some video from the locker room, some B-roll here on our YouTube. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube for the opportunity to check some of that out if you haven't seen it yet. But yeah, I think the thing that I was the most impressed with is how functional all of the flash is. Because when you see it, it's like lighting and it's big and it feels, and it's the same footprint. I'm not saying that, but it just feels super flashy. But all of the details of, and you talked about the phone charging thing from the NFLPA report. They have 3 different ways to charge things in each locker. Like they will be good. And playing the B-roll now, it's just awesome. The lighting, the design, the fact that they cut a football in the top of the ceiling, the details that go into it, the ability from a functionality standpoint to dry off your gloves. They have an instant dryer in every locker where you can dry stuff off in an hour. So let's say walkthrough happens to be in a downpour, in an Ohio monsoon that suddenly happens mid walkthrough and you go inside. Well, you throw your gloves in there, your socks, whatever you want, your cleats, and it'll get them dry, and they'll be dry by the time practice rolls around, which is really cool. Every single locker has a spot for your shoulder pads, and then the dedicated spot for a helmet is awesome because it features the helmet, it dries the helmet, and again, if you're wearing that early on and walk through for whatever reason or for anything, and you needed to dry it before practice, I think that's such a handy thing. It's also going to make the equipment managers' lives much, much easier, but it is sweet. I'm sure fans are excited to tour Paycor Stadium and check it out. And well, it was really, really cool. Also, they have a spot for shoulder pads up top, which I think is cool. I'm not sure I could reach it, or you, for what it's worth, Jake. I don't think you could reach it either. But let's say Amarius Mims, he had no problem getting his shoulder pads up there.
Yeah, they're saying these are 10-foot tall, 800-pound. Is that right? 800-pound lockers?
So basically what you bench press.
Yeah, basically, give or take. I was going to say like Amarius Mims might be able to move it out of all the players on the team. Who do you think? Anyway, let's not go down that rabbit hole.
Basically what you squat, you know.
Basically.
I keep making this joke.
Yeah,
better move on. Just gonna pile on like 800 pounds, Jake. You better go.
The ventilation and drying features were some of the coolest things to me. The functional bits of it, the football functional bits, like the comfort functional bits for players. Obviously, you know, the storage and the charging solutions and the upgraded bathroom, and you know, fixing probably the reported, according to the NFLPA report card, you know, stalls in the bathroom that didn't work, showers that weren't getting adequate water pressure. I would assume that all of that is fixed as part of the renovation. I think Willie Anderson posted some video of the bathroom that included the shower. So if you're interested in those details as well, you can check it out because we did not include that in our B-roll that James just rolled on this video, which was pretty cool to watch. But the shoulder pad dryer, the ventilated space for those and the helmet and for the equipment is a very cool feature. All the detail is clearly high end and clearly something that I think the players are going to enjoy from an efficient storage and many storage features, from a shelving, like a built-in shelving unit, to storage under the seat, to a nice deep closet kind of looking space. it looks like a great space and is a significant upgrade. And I think is encouraging from a knowing that the ownership has come through on some of their investments back into the team, back into the facilities, and the players are noticing, our local, I call them local, but they're really a national group, Pro Football Focus, media members noticing like, hey, these Bengals are really putting money back into this team. This is a real modernization of the franchise, in addition to, obviously us talking about it and others covering the Bengals. But I think those are good signs as well. I'll ask you this other question, James. Having been in the room, with it being full of players, you can, I imagine, remember last year with 90 players in there at this time of year, it does get to be pretty crowded. And you mentioned it's the same footprint. They're constrained by certain things from an architectural perspective where they couldn't necessarily make it significantly bigger, but does the new layout make it feel more spacious?
For sure. Now, will it feel that way if they bring ping pong tables in? And I know Elizabeth said they decided not to. We'll see. It's July 30th. It would not shock me if ping pong tables get brought in or something like that. That's when it feels fuller, when there's 20 media members plus all of the stuff that comes with it. They just moved in there yesterday.
Yeah.
And so they just got in and got their stuff and all of that fun stuff kind of organized. So we'll see. But it definitely felt bigger today. And I think part of it, again, it's almost like when you clean your house and you're like, man, so much space, so much room for activities, Jake. And part of it is just because you don't have all the stuff that you just from everyday life that you use. And it's the same thing with everyday life in the locker room. There's going to be bins for jerseys or things like that. And that stuff was in there today, but it definitely felt more open, bigger. And who knows, maybe that will continue. Regardless, though, they crushed this one. And Elizabeth Blackburn talked about it. She, whether it was her, the people that did the project, everyone, it looks awesome. They delivered. And to unveil it on July 30th, I think that's a huge, huge win.
Yeah, it's a nice win for the Cincinnati Bengals franchise. And Joe Burrow is going to be sharing his mini fridge with a lot of people. Apparently, he has reportedly said it's open to all. I don't know if that includes you or not, James. You might want to.
It does. We have the same hair. It does. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be a cramped mini fridge, but Joe did get an upgraded kitchenette next to his locker. And we, for those that are,
I'll be back. I'm going to go get the locker room's right next door. I'm going to go get my lunch real quick. Yeah. Technically dinner. It's almost 6:00 as we're recording. I'm going to get my dinner. You close out the show.
For those that were watching or everydayers, we speculated about who the locker neighbor would be for Joe Burrow. And he is just with the quarterbacks and maintains his extra space between his locker and the next quarterback locker, which is Jake Browning's locker. We also see that T. Higgins and Jamar Chase maintain the space between their lockers. That was apparently their request. Joe Burrow reportedly was consulted a little bit during the locker room design. So the face of the franchise getting his input there, certainly. But to James's point, that's going to do it for this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. We'll be back for a little mailbag on the Bengals off day while I travel down to Cincinnati to get ready for my stint at Bengals training camp. I'm very excited for that. Hope to see some of you starting on Thursday, and I'll be down there for about a week. So until next time, thanks for listening to this episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. Hoo day, and have a good one.